At 9:31 in the morning, something called Khorramshahr-4 drops out of the upper atmosphere and begins its final plunge toward the USS Abraham Lincoln. It is moving at Mach 14, not Mach 3 like the college FARs, not Mach 6 like the weapons Iran fired in the opening days of this war, but Mach 14, 14 times the speed of sound, nearly 3 miles every single second. At that speed, the missile will cross the distance from where it sits right now down to the flight deck of the Abraham Lincoln in roughly 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The Spy 6 radar caught the launch at 9:17, 14 minutes earlier. 14 minutes for the entire strike group to solve a problem no intervention doctrine has ever actually solved. They have not solved it. To understand why, you have to understand what Khorramshahr-4 really is, because Iran did not fire something ordinary at the Lincoln that morning. It is Iran's heaviest, longest-range ballistic missile, reaching out well over 1,000 miles, carrying a single warhead of roughly 1.5 tons, nearly double the payload of anything Iran had thrown at a carrier before in this war. One penetrating warhead built to punch through the layered armor of the largest warships ever put to sea. But the warhead isn't what sets this missile apart from everything the Lincoln has beaten so far. The speed is. At Mach 14, the SM-6 fire control computer runs into a math problem with no clean answer. To intercept a target moving that fast, the system has to predict exactly where the missile will be 4 seconds from now, the time an SM-6 needs to close on the intercept point within about 30 feet of accuracy. At that speed, a single degree of course correction translates into roughly 2,000 feet of lateral drift within those same 4 seconds. And the maneuverable re-entry vehicle riding on Khorramshahr-4 can pull a correction of a little over 2 degrees in its terminal phase. 2 degrees at Mach 14 means the missile can end up more than 4,000 feet from wherever the fire control computer predicted it would be by the time an SM-6 arrives. The firing solution is wrong by design, wrong by exactly the amount needed to make the intercept fail. Iran had spent 4 years studying the geometry of SM-6 intercepts. The terminal maneuver profile on Khorramshahr-4 was tuned specifically around the SM-6's maximum correction envelope. Not faster than the interceptor, not harder to track, just maneuverable enough that whatever solution the Aegis system generates gets invalidated by the moment the interceptor arrives. Lieutenant Commander Hassan Usi, the tactical action officer, authorized the first SM-6 at 9:24, 7 minutes before impact. Clean solution, favorable geometry. Aegis had beaten every ballistic threat this war had thrown at it using that exact same math. The interceptor reached its intercept point at 9:25 and found nothing there. Khorramshahr-4 had made a correction of a bit over 2 degrees. The interceptor detonated in empty air. A second SM-6 went up 40 seconds later with an updated solution. The missile corrected again, this time under 2 degrees in a different direction. Nothing. A third SM-6 followed at 9:27, the most aggressive intercept geometry Aegis could generate. A near head-on approach meant to shrink the missile's correction window down to almost nothing. Khorramshahr-4 waited until the interceptor was 3 seconds from impact, then snapped through its maximum correction, just enough. The third interceptor detonated roughly 4,000 feet from where the missile actually was. 3 SM-6s gone, 3 solutions generated, and 3 times the missile ended up in precisely the wrong place at precisely the right moment. The Phalanx close-in system woke up at 9:29 as Khorramshahr-4 crossed into its inner defensive ring. Against something moving at Mach 14, the Phalanx's engagement window is 0.4 of a second. Its fire control computer put the odds of a hit at about 2%. It fired anyway, 4,500 rounds a minute, chasing a target moving faster than anything the system was ever built to catch. The rounds reached the intercept point. Khorramshahr-4 ran its final pre-programmed correction and passed straight through the cloud of fire untouched. At 9:30, the Abraham Lincoln threw itself into an emergency turn to port. The last card left to play, an attempt to shift the ship just enough that the missile's terminal guidance would have to reacquire in its last seconds of flight. Rear Admiral James Carver had ordered the turn, knowing full well what the guidance system on Khorramshahr-4 was capable of. Terminal seeker hardware like that doesn't need a stationary target. It tracks radar cross-section and heat signature at once, and it was going to find the hull no matter which way the carrier swung. He ordered the turn anyway because it was the last option, and he wasn't finished trying yet. By 9:31, every option had run out. The Combat Information Center goes quiet. Not calm quiet, but the particular silence that falls when everyone in a room understands at the same moment that there is nothing left to do. Usay is staring at his screen. 3 SM-6s spent, the phalanx fired, the emergency turn already underway, and Khorramshahr-4 still descending at Mach 14 toward the Lincoln's flight deck, with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left and nothing standing between it and the hull. Over 1.5 tons of high explosive traveling at nearly 3 miles a second toward a flight deck packed with aircraft, fuel lines, ordnance, and the crew of the most powerful warship in the world. Rear Admiral Carver is standing at his station on the bridge. 33 years in the Navy. He has commanded destroyers, cruisers, carrier strike groups. He had run this exact scenario in simulations. He had read the threat assessments. He had known since the war began that this missile existed and that the formation had no reliable answer for it. He watches the tactical display for 4 seconds. Then he keys the circuit that reaches every compartment on the ship at once. All hands brace for impact. 2 decks below the Combat Information Center, in the electronic warfare room, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb hears the order and does not brace. He keeps typing. Webb isn't a weapons officer. He has no authority over the SM-6s, the phalanx, or the emergency turn. His job is reading electronic emissions, identifying, classifying, and exploiting the signals that pass between an enemy's weapons and the systems guiding them. 12 years doing this work, and he has never been more focused than in the last 4 minutes and 17 seconds, because 4 minutes and 17 seconds earlier, Webb's passive sensors had picked up something the Combat Information Center, 1 deck up, was too busy to notice. A narrowband encrypted data link signal pulsing in 3-second bursts every 14 seconds, originating at the Iranian launch position and terminating at a receiver inside Khorramshahr-4's guidance section. A data link, a live connection between the missile and its launcher, feeding it real-time position updates on the Abraham Lincoln through the entire final descent. Strip that link away and the missile's guidance is flying on the last position it ever received. It cannot correct, it cannot reacquire, it cannot track the carrier's movement. Webb had pinned the frequency at 9:27. He had spent 4 minutes and 17 seconds doing something nobody had asked him to do, and nobody even knew he was doing, building a forged version of that data link signal, a false transmission on the exact encrypted frequency, carrying fabricated position data for the Abraham Lincoln, formatted to pass every authentication check Khorramshahr-4's guidance computer would run against it. He built it while 3 SM-6s failed, while the phalanx fired, while the Admiral ordered the emergency turn. He built it while the Combat Information Center burned through every conventional option it had. And he had been waiting for this exact moment, not because he planned to wait, but because until every other option ran dry, nobody was going to listen to an electronic warfare officer telling them to stop defending and start spoofing. Now every other option was gone. He transmits at 9:31, on the precise encrypted frequency, a 3-second burst carrying 1 lie. A position for the Abraham Lincoln nearly half a mile from where the carrier actually sits. Khorramshahr-4 receives the updated coordinates at 9:31. Its guidance computer processes the new numbers, calculates the course correction needed to shift its impact point to the false position, and executes the maneuver. At Mach 14, with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, a half-mile lateral shift is well within reach. The missile snaps into the most violent correction of its entire flight. Its guidance is doing exactly what it was built to do, trusting the real-time position feed from its data link and adjusting final approach to put the warhead on the hull. The hull that link just told it to find, sitting nearly half a mile from where it actually is. In the Combat Information Center, Usay watches on his tactical display as the Khorramshahr-4 contact breaks its course away from the Lincoln's real position and settles onto a new heading of 247 degrees, pointed at open water roughly half a mile off the carrier's port bow. He stares at the screen for 3 seconds. The missile is still descending, still moving at Mach 14, still carrying its full warhead, but it is no longer aimed at the Abraham Lincoln. At 9:34, Khorramshahr-4 hits the Arabian Sea, about half a mile off the Lincoln's port bow. The warhead detonates on impact with the water. A ton and a half of high explosive going off in open ocean produces a blast the Lincoln's crew will describe in their after-action reports as something none of them had ever witnessed. The water column climbs roughly 400 feet into the air, taller than the carrier's own island superstructure. The shock wave rolls outward through the water and slams into every hull in the formation at once. The Abraham Lincoln shudders bow to stern hard enough to knock sailors off their feet in compartments more than a quarter mile from the impact point. Everything loose on the ship moves. The flight deck visibly flexes. The blast is visible from 40 miles away. Nothing touches the hull. Inside the Combat Information Center, nobody speaks for about 6 seconds. Then Carver keys the circuit down to Webb's station. "Webb, what did you do?" Webb looks at his screen, the data link frequency he pinned at 9:27. The forged signal it took him 4 minutes and 17 seconds to build, while everyone above him ran out of conventional options. "I fed it false data, sir. Corrected it to a position we weren't at." Carver says nothing for 4 seconds, then, "How long have you had that frequency?" "Since 9:27, Webb says. 4 minutes and 17 seconds before I transmitted." This is where the American response begins, and it does not stop at a single launcher. Webb pushes the Khorramshahr-4 data link frequency out to every EA-18G Growler operating in theater at 9:35. 4 Growlers. Each one immediately begins jamming that specific frequency across its entire operating sector. The data link that feeds real-time targeting updates to every remaining Khorramshahr-4 in Iran's inventory goes dark at once across the whole theater. Every launcher, every missile on rails, every battery Iran had been holding in reserve. Iran's most capable missile isn't just grounded, it's blind. Each of the 4 Khorramshahs Iran still had left can no longer receive targeting updates, cannot correct in the terminal phase, cannot find a moving carrier. At 9:38, Rear Admiral Carver authorizes the strike package that American intelligence had been building since the war started. A target list covering every Khorramshahr-4 storage site, assembly plant, and underground launch complex in Iran, drawn from 21 straight days of surveillance, satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and the exact launcher position Webb had triangulated off the data link frequency during the engagement. 18 Tomahawk cruise missiles left the Abraham Lincoln's vertical launch cells at 9:40. Not one target, 18 targets simultaneously. Every confirmed Khorramshahr-4 site in Iran that American intelligence had on the board. Storage bunkers, underground assembly complexes, launch facilities cut into mountain ridgelines, production infrastructure Iran had spent 11 years building. The first Tomahawk hit at 10:27, the last at 10:44. 17 minutes, 18 hits. Every Khorramshahr-4 facility in Iran stopped existing between 10:27 and 10:44 that morning. Back in the electronic warfare room, Webb wrote his combat report in 2 sentences. Iran fired its most capable missile and fed it real-time position data for 9 minutes. We spent 4 of those minutes building a signal that told it we were somewhere else. Iran fired its most powerful missile at the USS Abraham Lincoln, a ton-and-a-half warhead moving at Mach 14 that beat 3 SM-6 interceptors, shrugged off the phalanx, and forced an admiral to order his entire crew to brace for impact. A missile that was 3 minutes and 40 seconds from the flight deck when it caught one burst of false data and turned half a mile out to sea instead. The American response didn't stop at destroying the launcher. It ended the program. 18 sites, 17 minutes, Iran's most powerful missile, every single one of it gone. And the lesson Tehran carried home from the Arabian Sea that morning was the one it least wanted to learn: that the most dangerous part of American naval power isn't the system that fires back on command. It was the man 2 decks below the Combat Information Center who spent 4 minutes and 17 seconds building a solution nobody had asked for and waited for everything else to fail before he used it. Maybe that's the part worth sitting with: how often the difference between disaster and survival comes down to someone doing the job nobody assigned them on their own initiative and having the patience to wait until the exact right second to use it. Would you have trusted your gut like Webb did, working in silence while everyone above you burned through every option they had? Or would you have spoken up sooner and risked nobody listening at all?